Hi, everybody. I'm here with Ben Stewart, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about the work that he's doing. He's been working with SpeechWire for so long that I don't even remember when SpeechWire started. I do remember that there was a period of time when there were really only maybe one or two colleges at most that were even touching SpeechWire. And I was one of the first to just jump in and get that started. And we did that for our high school tournament, for the Tournament of Champions in Extemporaneous Speaking when I was at Northwestern. And then for every tournament after that I've ever done, it's gone through SpeechWire. And even this experience, I knew I wanted to reach out to Ben right away. And Ben was, of course, so nice and offered to allow us to do this for free and as a sponsorship, because it was one of those things where he knew that nobody was paying for it. We're doing our best to make things work in the speech community. So a huge thank you to you, Ben. I love that you did that. So first off, my very first question is, of course, what is it like on the other side of the computer? What are your weekends like sitting at home, or I guess when you're at tournaments? What's that like for you?
Sure. What time of year are you asking about? The summer or during the season?
Let's say during the season. I think that's what everyone wants to know.
During the season. Yeah, so it varies a lot. It starts out relatively calm in the fall when we may have 10, 11 tournaments going on. In that case, I really can actually look pretty carefully at each one. And of course, I check every tournament. I look in on every tournament before it begins. But not a lot of phone calls early on. And then we sort of ramp up, and eventually we get to December and we get to January, and there may be anywhere between 50 to 100 going on simultaneously on the website. And that's when it becomes do what I can to answer any calls that come in, stay on top of everything ahead of time, and just stay calm, really, in between calls. And fortunately, because people in the community have gotten so good with SpeechWire, and I'm so grateful for how much time they've put into learning it, the calls actually are less than they used to be. And that really speaks to how expert everyone has become with the software. And I'm really grateful for that. But getting out to tournaments, which is a pretty common weekly, bi-weekly thing for me, getting out to tournaments is my favorite thing because I get to see people face to face. I get to see different communities face to face. I get to have great conversations, and I get to see how what I do is being used in the community. And that's how I get better. So, really week to week, during the week I'm programming, during the week I'm answering emails. Late at night, Thursday and Friday night, I'm checking tournaments and trying to make sure that I think everything is set up the way people want it to be. And then after that, it becomes hoping on Saturday that everything goes really smoothly. And the way I know it's going smoothly is that I get fewer calls. But on the other hand, I'm always happy to get the calls because I like talking to my clients. And I love talking to people in this community.
Yeah, so you've done so many things over the years with SpeechWire. I've seen it grow. I've seen people learn and have to develop, and new little pieces come out. I've been doing it for a long time with the system. Of all of the different things over, let's say, the past 10 years, all the different additions you've made to SpeechWire, which one do you think is probably the most helpful for coaches?
Wow, that's interesting. The most helpful for coaches, I think that the addition of, honestly, at some level, e-balloting is probably going to be the most impactful long term. I think that posting online was the precursor to that. Prior to that, everything was always just printed. And at some point, someone, a high school client, I think, just said, look, Ben, you got to do this posting online. We've got to post our schematics online. You just have to write it. You have to write it for us. And I said, okay. And that's how a lot of the improvements come along, is that somebody just says, dude, you've got to do this thing. And so then I do it, and we see that naturally the client was right, and it works fantastically. And at that point, that's how the live stuff started, where you can put up the schematics online. I said it was e-balloting. I think that'll be important long term. But I think heretofore, the most important thing was certainly posting the schematics online, cutting down on that paper use, cutting down on the amount of stuff that people have to print out and the amount of stuff they have to collate ahead of the tournament. I think other than writing the scheduler itself, which is probably the biggest thing that saved time for coaches over the years. I mean, it's incalculable how much time that's probably saved. And I'm just going to throw in there, since that's the thing that probably predominantly was most important, how grateful I am for my head coach from high school, who initially taught me how you even go about scheduling a tournament, how he would go about scheduling a tournament. And of course, the algorithm does it differently than he did. but the core values of what you want to do in a tournament. And then all that I've learned over the years, including what I've learned working with AFA and NFA and NSC, all the values that go into how you want to do a tournament, what's important for a tournament, and learning all of the tiebreakers, learning all of the sweepstakes, all that sort of thing. Those are all time-saving things too. And of course, implementing it is important, but I can't implement it unless I know what to do. And so, that's what's helped me the most. And in that way, I think people have helped themselves through me. I've been like the conduit to try to help people save time themselves.
Yeah, there was a couple fun things that came out of that. One, first of all, thank you for that work. The actual ability to put things to an automatic scheduling system, to be able to do all of that through the computer, SpeechWire itself, that type of software enabled the National Speech Championship to even happen. So this event doesn't exist without you and the work that you've been doing.
Well, thank you.
Because it just simply didn't happen. When I was developing it, I was thinking to myself, what could we do now that we're in a modern age? Can we create a tournament differently? And that's exactly what this is. There's no way this works if we have to do things by hand. There's no way I put it all together in time. So I do have a question for you, though. What was your high school experience like as far as a competitor? What were rounds like? Were you any good at speech? Did you love it? What was that?
It was great. I really, really enjoyed high school speech. I did a few events here in Illinois. I did HI and was horrible, just absolutely abysmal. But I really wanted to try it, and good on me, because that experience absolutely made me a better speaker, and it made me more confident because I was doing something that I was really bad at in front of people. And that really weirdly builds confidence, because then you get to something you're good at. And I was okay at oratory, and I was quite good at radio, as it turned out. And you're much better at those things. I will say that the experience of speech, I think, was much different back then. Probably the thing that's changed the most, and it's not just due to me across the country, and even in the collegiate circuit, it's not just due to me. It's due to Chris Palmer at Tab Room. It's due to Brent Hinkle at Joy of Tournaments. It's due to Rich Edwards. God bless Rich Edwards, who developed TRPC. But through all of these solutions, the huge amount of time that there used to be between the end of finals and awards, that has really compressed. And I hope that what all of our efforts have led to, perhaps more than anything else, is people having more dinners with their families after high school tournaments, because sometimes we would get back so late. My parents would have to wait to have dinner, anything like that. I mean, that was something that was very different. A lot more paper, but radio was great. I had a great time. I was pretty successful. It was a good time. Every speech community, the work that we do, the work that you do, the work that the students do, is one of the best things that you can do for yourself as a person.
Yeah, so the one of the things you talked about there was the way in which we make things go faster and the way in which we handle tiebreakers. And one of the tiebreakers that we were going to be doing, and if by some miraculous chance we still do a live in-person National Speech Championship at the end of May, if not for next year, one of the things we were going to do is switch the tiebreaker process from typical speaker points to majority of one, or total number of ones. What are your thoughts on that as far as the way it would impact the tournament and scoring? And first of all, knowing I don't think any way we could do this if we had to go back through and count up everybody's ones the whole time by hand. So thanks for that. So what are your thoughts?
Sure, absolutely. My pleasure. And real quick, I just want to call out to Danny Cantrell at ForensicTournament.net, who's also done freaking awesome work. I knew I was forgetting somebody, one of the people who does my job. So way to go, Danny, also. I think it's a really interesting concept with the number of ones. It'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. One of the things that I think that some people maybe don't think about necessarily is that all of these different styles of tabulation do different things, and none of them, to me, is illegitimate or wrong. I think trying out something new is great. If you think about adding up ranks, you're taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're assuming that every speech was better or worse than the other speech, the one you ranked above or below it, by the exact same margin. And obviously, points can help to delineate that, but points are also very subjective, as many people have talked about before. So I think that counting up the ones, the votes, it's almost like a vote. You're voting for that person and saying, this is the person who I think in that round was the best. And I think that'll be an interesting pedagogical tool to look at and see, what does that mean? What does that get us? And I applaud you for giving it a try.
Yeah, I'm also fascinated by the numbers and how they're going to play out with all these votes that we have today.
Yes.
I was just checking in. Info already had 270 votes already.
That's wonderful.
270 responses of people who had gone in to vote.
That's wonderful.
And so imagine if you had a judging panel of 270 people. That seems so wild. So
yeah,
we're going to see how it plays out. It's going to be a lot of fun. I left info up for a little bit just for anybody who's watching this now. I left that out so that way it'll close at the same time as communication analysis, just because of communication analysis start time being a little off. But otherwise, everything is good to go on that. Ben, thank you so much for coming in. I very much appreciate it. And good luck to you with everything, and to SpeechWire in general, which I absolutely love. If you're not using SpeechWire and you're watching this for some reason, try out SpeechWire. It's really cool. All right, Ben, thank you. See you later.
Thanks, Ryan. Take care.